Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to look over this article because I've really been thinking a lot about this aspect of ambivalence within fat acceptance and within the movement. I think that there are a lot of people that are currently fat acceptancy that still want to lose weight. And I want to read this article with you guys because I want to explore what is going to cause people to stay within fat acceptance, or what justifications and logic, quote unquote logic, they use for staying, even though there is a clear ambivalence in a lot of them and there's a clear dissatisfaction with where they're at. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article. We're going to go over it. It's written by Lana Simmons. It says, Lana Simmons knows that constantly trying to lose weight is a frustrating and disappointing way to live, but she also knows from experience that being big isn't easy in a fat-phobic world, and she's not alone. So from that beginning title, it just makes me think it's probably they're just going to blame the world for everything. But I do wonder if there will be anything in regards to the actual intrapersonal, so the internal aspects of being fat. I wonder if there will be anything actually covered in this article, or if it's all going to be, well, the world is mean. So let's see. Okay. This is her, I'm guessing. Just make sure I have her in shot. I do. Okay. Got you. The first time I came across the fat acceptance movement was in 2008 when I was 5 months pregnant with my daughter. I was afraid of passing down my weight loss obsession to my child, and I spent my evenings on the internet looking up phrases such as fat and healthy weight loss and fat exercise, trying to find something that would teach me to make peace with my size. I eventually landed on fat activist Marilyn Wan's website, Fat So. When I first read her explain how you could eat delicious food and be fat but still healthy, it seemed too good to be true. Up until that point, I didn't realize it was an option to live in my body as it is, to be worthy of eating, moving, and enjoying my life without losing weight. So I want to say there's already a bit of a contradiction within this article. So it seems like she's kind of skipping over the aspect of her experience that made her want to make peace with her size. So she's kind of already lost me. If you guys in the comments, if you guys have ever been in fat acceptance, please let me know. I would love to read your experiences. What made you want to make peace with your size? What made you get to this first step? Because she's skipping right over this. Okay. And so I guess at that point, when she sees a website, then it tells her she can do whatever she wants and there won't be any consequences, and she took solace in that. I bought Wan's book, Fat So, because you don't have to apologize for your size, and loved it. I wanted to share her ideas with my doctors, friends, and family, but I learned very quickly that the rest of the world wasn't as open to the concept of body acceptance. In fact, when I mentioned the book at my next prenatal visit, my doctor told me Wan was glorifying obesity, quote unquote, and recommended I look into lap band surgery after I gave birth. Yeah, it's a little harsh. I do want to observe here too, this term glorifying obesity, they have completely gridlocked their minds against this phrase. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest using this in an argument with any of them, because their brain will turn off if they hear this. They use this as, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of weird inconsistencies within fat acceptance, but they kind of use it as a weapon, even though they don't listen to it either. It's really weird. I don't even know if they know what it means anymore. But that's how I see her using it here. Quote unquote glorifying obesity. So I would take it that she's saying it's dumb that her doctor said that, it doesn't make any sense, blah, blah, blah. Okay. After all, it had been recently approved by my insurance carrier, and if I didn't get the weight off, I would surely die. In fact, I had been told by doctors since my early 20s that if I didn't lose weight, I would become diabetic at best, even though my blood work never showed this risk, and I wouldn't live more than another decade at worst. Well, I've made it to 42 so far, and I don't have diabetes. Yeah, so there's a lot of doctors that they try to predict things like the weather, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. First and foremost, doctors are just people. There is this strange concept within America, specifically, that doctors are God. Doctors are like infallible angels sent from above or something that can never be wrong. I don't agree with this at all. I think doctors are people. They make their best guess based on what they know, which it depends on how good of a doctor they are, right? It's very hard to sit here and do a blanket statement about every doctor in the country. But there are good doctors and there are bad doctors. I myself, I was told that I would be diabetic by age 24. I wasn't. I did, however, become pre-diabetic around that time, and I've been kind of circling that for quite a while. And when I last tested, I was still pre-diabetic. However, I am still super morbidly obese, which is very important to consider. I would say that 42 is definitely older, but it's not that old. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of sad to view making it to 42 as an accomplishment. I think it says a lot, even if she doesn't realize what she's saying there. Okay, let's continue. My history of yo-yo dieting. I started my first diet when I was just 10 years old and centered my life around weight loss for decades. Yeah, this is a huge issue. So, although when you're very, very big, it will take probably 2 or 3 years to lose the weight, it should not take your whole life. If you're going on for your whole life, you may be developing an addiction to dieting or even an ED. Or you may even have one without realizing it. So a lot of people don't understand that for some people, a part of BED is restriction. And it's because when you restrict certain types of foods or when you restrict food, it makes the binge more satisfying. And I myself, I was in this cycle quite a bit where I would be keto. I'd be keto for 3 weeks and then I would binge for a week. And the euphoria I felt with eating carbs, it was extremely addicting. And it's a way of sort of manipulating your body signals. And I think it's really toxic and really horrible for your health. But a lot of people get addicted to dieting. That's called, in my opinion, that's like an addiction to dieting in a sense. It's an addiction to the feeling of giving in, which you can only feel that feeling if you've restricted. So I do think a lot of people that yo-yo diet, they have this going on. And even when I started my thyroid protocol in March of 2021, by October of 2021, I wanted to go back to keto because I wanted to repeat that cycle again. But I didn't allow myself to. I said, no, you're not doing it. It's never worked. You're not going to do it again. And I think it's that weird thought process in a lot of really overweight people that if you just keep trying the same thing over and over again, it will work eventually. And it never does. it's really weird, and it's something that's pushed on fat people by a lot of other people. But if I were her, and what I think she should have done is question, maybe what I'm doing as a diet is not sustainable or working if I have to do this for decades to never succeed. That's not normal. That's not okay. That's not right. Okay. As I grew into my 20s and 30s, my weight went up and down. I would lose 40 to 50 pounds at a time and then gain it all back. Okay. It's very typical. When I was doing keto, I would gain and lose 80 pounds, which is probably somewhat equivalent to her. It's not really great to do that. Because if you're dieting in a way that is anti-thyroid, which there are many ways of dieting that are promoted are anti-thyroid. Whether it's severe calorie restriction, overtraining, cutting out all carbs, cutting out all fat, cutting out meat, cutting out, there's so many things that people will cut out. It's kind of insane. If you were to do like I'm going to eat only watermelon for 2 weeks, that's horrible for your thyroid. So a lot of people, they do these things and they're heavily promoted. Even somebody who's just doing healthy eating, they'll oftentimes eat a lot of nuts and seeds and fish and these kind of things, which are not necessarily horrible for the thyroid, but they're not really like a boost. It actually kind of slows you down if that's all you're doing. So I think a lot of times people do these diet steps, they get really hungry, and then they start eating again. Or like I said, they get addicted to the restrictive and binging cycle, which I think that can be a bit of an addiction just because it's that release and that euphoric feeling of finally giving your body something that you've been denying it. So I think that's a huge aspect as well. I would say at this point, I eat a balanced diet. It's definitely not something that people would suggest, as I've stated. I have candy, I have red meat, I have, bird, lots of dairy, lots of carbs, that kind of stuff. But I stay within calorie deficit because I can, because I'm not starving. Like after the gym today I had ice cream because I've been struggling to stay within my full deficit after the gym, like on the day after. So I made sure to have ice cream because it's very filling and it's sustaining me to where I can stay within my caloric deficit till tomorrow. So again, if I was just eating salmon, rice, and kale for dinner, I would probably be starving to death right now, and I probably would be eating over my calories. I think people don't always understand what your body actually wants and what it's actually needing to feel satiated. And a lot of people trust authority or whatever when it's not necessarily based on anything that substantial. It's really, people don't realize that like in the 50s, people would eat dinner and they would pass around sugar cubes between meals or like as a palate cleanser, and people weren't fat like that back then. So it's like people just, there's a very strange mindset. And again, people think like if I just listen to it again, if I do it this way again, I'll be fine. It'll work this time. And it never does. And you keep losing the same 40 to 50 pounds, or like me, the same 80 pounds. I only did it twice. I was like, okay, no. Maybe it's just because I'm weird and I'm gay, and I was just like, I don't know. I'm not like huge on societal standards, so I was just like, I'm going to try something totally different. And yeah, here we are, right? My feelings about fat acceptance would cycle too. I craved the peace I thought I saw within the body positive movement. I wanted to be okay with my body and not treat it like something that needed to be fixed. I would immerse myself in affirmations of self-love, load my social feed with body positive influencers, nourish my body with nutrient-dense meals, and try to use exercise as a way to care for my body, not punish it. I would work on eating intuitively. But inevitably, I would regain a large amount of weight, freak out, and prepare to hop on another diet. So my friend Lisa, she says this so well. Intuitive eating only works with macros, not calories. You need to count, more than likely. If you're very fat, your cues may be off in the sense that you may not realize how much you're actually eating. I think that's a huge thing for people. A lot of people do not realize how much they're eating, especially when they're intuitively eating. You could be intuitively eating like 3,000 calories a day as a woman. That's a lot. You know, that's quite a bit. And you don't even realize it. So, yeah. I definitely eat intuitively when it comes to macros. Like some days I eat more protein, some days I eat less, some days more carbs, less. I'm pretty consistently high carb. I've really needed that, especially within a deficit. It has really helped me a lot, but it may be a different case for someone else. You know, I think that's really important to be able to have individualized approaches to things, but always keeping a balanced diet, even if you're having more of one thing and less of another. I still had fat today as well. I had ice cream that has a lot of fat in it. You know, I still had dairy, I still had meat. You know, I keep it balanced. And that's how I've been able to stay on a deficit. Even if I was struggling a bit this month, I've been plateaued. I think it's ending. And I'm doing pretty well. So I'm not complaining. But inevitably, I would regain a large amount of weight, freak out, blah, 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 and prepare to hop on another diet. Yes, because intuitive eating in that sense, and fat acceptance and all these things, it leads to massive amounts of weight gain. It just does. Also, a lot of diets, they slow your metabolism. Again, anything anti-thyroid will slow your metabolism. So when you get off of it, you'll actually gain even more because your metabolism's slowed. If your thyroid is slowed, then your metabolism is slowed. It's extremely important in regards to fat, in regards to obesity, in regards to weight loss, especially. Your thyroid is everything in regards to weight loss. If you don't consider it, it will be very hard, especially from a huge size, which she's pretty big. We've seen her. It doesn't surprise me, you know. If you're smaller, you can white knuckle it. You can kind of figure it out. And then a lot of people, they're kind of lucky where they can lose that weight, get to a decent weight, and then they say, okay, I'm fine now. I can have a cheeseburger now because I'm thin, and then it actually can help them stay thinner because that's actually more of a prothyroid food than, you know, those salad dressings you put on your salad or the chickpeas or the soy, you know, the edamame and stuff. It's not really helpful, you know. But when you're able to have a cheat meal and have your cheeseburger, it actually really helps you stay thinner. But when you tell your big fat friend, don't have that, have a salad, they're going to be starving. And then if they're sitting there eating a bunch of fries, that's a whole other issue. Then you're going to be huge. So that's how I got fat. The majority of what I ate to get fat was French fries and chips. That's probably the most fattening food that exists. It's pretty obvious, but just keeping it real. Okay. Let's continue. Sorry, I'm kind of getting derailed. I completed the cycle over and over until I had my last big weight loss about 10 years ago. It was a monumental effort that I treated like a full-time job. My spouse, who was in the Air Force, was getting ready to deploy, so I was able to clean out all his high-calorie foods and alcohol. I asked my doctor for a referral to a dietitian and exercise physiologist. See, I have to give her the credit. She really tried. I have to give her credit here. She maybe didn't get the best advice, and that kills me to see, because I didn't either. I turned all my attention to food, exercise, and caring for my 2 young children. I weighed and measured everything that went into my mouth and exercised 2 hours a day. I recruited other women to lose weight with me so that we could have a support group. Wow. My whole life centered around my weight loss. Everything. In 8 months, I lost 100 pounds. I had loose skin and flour sacks for boobs, but still, it felt amazing. I was able to fit comfortably in plane seats and was unafraid to fly. I felt respected and seen. When I said something, people actually listened. Interesting. That's something I've heard a lot of people say, that people will listen. It's interesting. I mean, there are a lot of really, really hugely fat people that people do listen to, but I always talk about that mid-fat zone where people don't listen to you. It's interesting. It's like I could live in this world and not be ashamed of who I was, not have to justify my experience or apologize for the space I occupied. But soon after my spouse came home from being deployed, he received orders for us to relocate. I was devastated. I knew the only way I would be able to maintain my weight loss was with the support I had from my doctors and friends. As soon as the plane landed at our new location, I started eating foods that were not on my plan. Okay. Interesting. I wish she would give more detail. I wish she would say what she was eating, because then we could maybe actually point to what the issue was. But that's interesting to me. I loved where we lived before, and our new town was not a good fit for me. It was hard making friends, and rather than putting in the effort to do meal prep, I started relying on restaurants. I mean, at least she's admitting some of the mistakes here. This is a huge mistake. Restaurants, you can be okay somewhat, but eating out all the time, it's just not helpful to maintaining weight loss. It's not helpful to losing weight at all. Restaurants, they don't use good oils, and they're very concerned with making food the lowest quality and the cheapest way possible, typically, unless if you go to a super 5-star restaurant or something. It's hard to even find a restaurant that uses butter. A lot of times they use like fake butter. So I'm just saying that kind of stuff, it will weigh you down like an anchor. I tried to get back on track, but there was no way to reestablish my routine. I gained all the weight back in less than a year. So as you guys know, I went through something this year. I had a car accident and I was dumped. And it was so horrifying. But because I had done the work over the previous years, I was able to continue my routine. I don't know exactly what she did because she won't tell us, but I'm thinking that her diet was probably relying on her stress system. And I don't think it's ever good to rely on your stress system in order to lose weight. It's not sustainable because bad things happen in life. This wasn't even that bad. This was just moving. Could you imagine if she had something truly traumatic happen? She would have completely derailed. Don't depend on your stress system to lose weight. Depend on your thyroid to lose weight. Depend on the healthy version of energy to lose weight. It's so important for sustainability because yes, I went through that, and I guarantee you if I would have been keto, I would have absolutely derailed and gained all the weight back. But I wasn't, so I didn't, because I had been feeding into my stress system for almost 2 years, for about 2 years actually. So when this traumatic stuff happened, I could deal with the stress because my stress system wasn't tapped out, and I could continue the deficit and the gym and do everything like nothing had happened. And of course I was crying and very upset and, really having anxiety, about my car and these types of things. Like I was really not doing well at the time, but I was able to keep my deficit and gym going because my stress system could deal with the stresses, and I wasn't depending on my stress system to lose the weight. So it was a completely separate thing. I was able to split it, and that's what it takes to lose, especially from a very big size, because bad things happen. Stressful things happen. And it sounds to me like whatever diet she did, it was using her stress system. And so she had not even that big of a stress, and she completely failed from that point. It's very sad because it's a lot of work. I feel so bad. I really want this to change. That's why I talk about these things. I'm just like, please hear me, you know? And I feel really blessed and grateful that I was able to keep going and I was okay, because I didn't know that that was going to be the case, you know? It had never been the case before, so. And I do have other stresses going on, but I'm able to keep going because it's my stress system can deal with the stress. And, you know, that's what it's for. 3 years after we moved, my spouse retired from the military and we moved to another location. By then, I was deep into the body positive movement, eating food I enjoyed, and barely exercising. But I was worried about how my weight would affect me as I got older. My blood pressure was slowly creeping up, and I did not want to be on medication. It's bad enough to be fat in a doctor's office. Studies have found that many health professionals view overweight patients as lazy and non-compliant. But if I were fat and on medication, I knew I would be treated even worse. When a medical professional tells me I'm obese or begins to lecture me on how to eat, I feel like all the confidence and strength I have as a woman and a mother disappears and I shut down. I feel ashamed and wonder, why can't I eat less, exercise more, and not use food as a way to deal with stress? Girl, I want to scream to you. It has to do with your thyroid. It has to do with the types of foods that you're eating. It has to do with other habits that you're doing that are not helpful to thyroid health. I guarantee you that's what it is. And it kills me because I have felt this so many times, and I know so many fat people who have felt this so many times. And we're taught to not even consider thyroid health, or we're taught, well, my levels are normal. Just because your levels are normal doesn't mean your body's utilizing your hormone. If you eat a bunch of bad oils, or if you're smoking weed every day or something, you know, it doesn't matter because your estrogen can go up. You can have other factors that maybe aren't being addressed, other hormonal issues that are interfering with thyroid health that you might not know about. There's so many things that can go wrong with that. And it's like, you just gotta like take care of it, whatever it is. But it's like, people don't know. Like I was watching this guy, he's like a YouTube creator that I follow, and he had lost weight, and he was like talking about hemp and how he's trying to go vegan, and he's trying to do all these things, and it's just like, oh gosh, like these are going to make it really hard. And I've seen him gain and lose the same pounds over and over again. It's like people don't consider these things. And I understand why, and it's like, I need to do something. I'm going to. I really, at this time, I have to focus on myself. So, but it's just, this has to change. It has to change. On the flip side, though, I also wondered, why does this even matter? Why can't I exist as is without everyone commenting on my body? Does my weight determine my morality, my intelligence, my creativity? My spouse is very attractive, and many women tell me how hot he is. Every time they say this, it feels like they are really telling me that I'm lucky he married me and he hasn't cheated on me, and that I should thank my lucky stars that he tolerates my fatness. That's sad. I think what a lot of people don't necessarily understand is that some of these feelings of self-esteem and stuff, it can actually be a side effect of being overweight. Like it actually can affect, like even if nobody's saying anything, you know, like somebody saying, oh, your spouse is attractive, you're taking it as an insult. You know, it's like, that's actually a compliment, but you can't see it as a compliment. You see it as they're saying you're lucky that he married you and that he hasn't cheated on you. It's like, that's an obesity related, like you're getting mental health issues from your obesity, because it's not normal to view things that way all the time. It isn't normal. Still caught between two worlds. As much as I agree with the body positive movement in theory, I find that as I get older and my blood pressure is rising, it's simply not working with my reality. That's sad. I love the idea of enjoying food and using exercise as a way to care for myself, but the desire to lose weight is real and it's not going away. For decades, I have worshipped at the altar of thinness. I have focused on sweating, cutting calories, and saying no to outings with friends for fear of cheating on my diet. That desire to be thin has pushed me to extreme, unsustainable behavior. Okay, well, let's start here. Don't do this anymore. That's step one. But the other side can be just as extreme. Weight loss is all I and so many other women have known for years, yet so many people I've communicated with in the body positive movement make it clear to me that we are not supposed to talk about weight loss at all. But by not talking about the monster under the bed, we give that monster more power, and I wind up feeling even more anxiety. What you need to understand is that movement is not there to make you feel better. That movement is for a lot of people to keep their delusions going. It has nothing to do with actually comforting anybody. When I once posted on a body positive Facebook group asking how people were dealing with the pressure to lose weight, I was immediately made to feel bad. I was told I should just tell people to not talk to me about their diet, cleanse my social media, and find a doctor who practices HAES, a philosophy that respects differences in body types and focuses on health rather than weight loss. I was told that if I really love myself, I wouldn't be asking that question. Wow. And I wouldn't care what anyone thinks of my body. I would wear bikinis and feel no shame. That is just like, I think, I've talked a lot about how severe hypothyroidism, it can lead to a lack of empathy. I think in my mind, at least, and in my theory and from my experience of it, I think it's because if your hypo gets so bad, you start to live in a state of flight or fight, and your body goes into a survival mode, even when there's no threat, because you have to survive on adrenaline. You can only get energy from two places, adrenaline and thyroid hormone. So if your thyroid hormone is weak or not there or not produced as much or not being utilized correctly, you have to depend on adrenaline, which is what I say about depending on the stress system to lose weight. But when you get really hugely fat, you start to depend on your stress system just to live life daily, which causes so many health issues and mental health issues like a complete lack of empathy. This is horrible to say to somebody. It's cruel. And I don't know if fat activists can really truly process that this is a cruel thing to say. And this is where I knew that the body positive movement, or at least the one I had found online, wasn't something I'd be good at. I knew that me loving myself didn't look like wearing a bikini or telling people to stop talking about diets or fighting with medical professionals. Self-love to me is being okay with my desire to eat, with my desire to not diet, with me being a conflicted human being and wanting to figure out why I am the way I am. Sure. I mean, I think that's more of a self-acceptance, but that's better than self-hatred for sure. Also, I couldn't help but notice that so many of the dietitians pushing intuitive eating are thin white women. How can a thin person tell me to stop dieting? How can they understand what my life is like? Do they understand how I'm treated by doctors who are supposed to be helping me? Or that when I'm grocery shopping, people will comment on what's in my cart? Or that passerby will fling derogatory terms at me as they're driving by? I am larger than life, yet invisible at the same time. It's interesting. She's a little bit of a writer. That was a good line. It's very interesting. I can resonate with that for sure. For sure. People notice when I walk in the room but want nothing to do with me because obviously if I knew how fat I was, I would do something about it. Jeez. I think I don't know. I don't know. It's a little bit of probably your attitude as well. Like people are, again, I don't know. This is so bad to say, but I just feel like I have to be real. But I don't know how much empathy like a lot of extremely overweight people can have, because like when you're in that flight or fight mode, it's just not as possible. But empathy states that you likely have a negative attitude, or you have a stank face, or there's something off about how you are. There are a lot of fat people that are very popular and liked. And I've seen it happen in my life. And I think it's probably more to do with the energy I'm putting out there and how I'm coming across to people. And that can be hard to see when you're not well. And so I think that could be a part of it. I think it's easier to think it's everybody else, but it's logic states it's probably more likely that it's you, and I'm just saying that as an honest thing to say. When I'm thinner, I'm treated so much better. I'm respected even though I am still the same person. So I do choose a life where weight loss/maintenance consumes 80% of my life. Or so do I choose a life where weight loss or maintenance consumes 80% of my life, or do I choose a life of growth, creativity, loving and enjoying my family, celebrating life with delicious home-cooked meals and stimulating conversations? These are not mutually exclusive. This is a little hypohaze. Little hypohazy. Little black and white thinking, right? What I talk about on this channel. This is hazy. This isn't real. You're not seeing reality. This isn't a real choice. You can do all of that at the same time. I am treated better when I'm thinner, but I live more authentically when I'm fat. It's exhausting. Gosh, that is such a toxic mindset. I can't think of something more horrible than to think that. A lot of people aren't necessarily treated better when they're thinner. If that was like somebody's motivation, that's not a sustainable motivation. You're not necessarily going to be treated better. Your motivation should be for your health, and maybe to some extent, if you want a certain aesthetic, that's all you're going to do. Because at the end of the day, there's so much noise around obesity and weight, but it really comes down to the health aspect. And if people treat how people treat you doesn't affect your health, in the sense that if you have serious physical illnesses from morbid and super morbid obesity, it doesn't matter if people are mean to you or nice to you. It's not going to affect it, because the obesity is contributing to it, and it must be dealt with. So it doesn't even really matter. No matter how people treat you, you deserve to be as healthy as you can be. You deserve to care for yourself. It doesn't matter if people treat you good or bad. You still deserve that the same. I don't think putting your diet or your bodily health on the approval of others is sustainable either. It's just as bad as putting it on your stress system. I think it's a toxic way of thinking about this, and we've got to change these conversations. We have to, because this type of stuff, it just leads people to fat acceptance. It's just not, it is horrible. It's exhausting. I still crave that approval from society, but as I've gotten older, I realize I just don't have enough gas in my tank to focus on it. I need to use the energy I have to care for my children and my marriage, to work, be creative, and rest. I'm unwilling to relinquish all of that to try and make my body more appealing to society. But you still are. When you're that fat and you stay that fat, the longer you stay that fat, the less energy you will have, the smaller your world becomes. I'm having a bit of an identity crisis because I have energy and I can actually do things again in my life because I'm healthier. And it's this overwhelming sense of freedom because I have more energy and my world is getting bigger, and it's scary. But again, I haven't used my stress system to lose weight, so my stress system can handle my identity crisis, and I can continue losing weight because it's separate. Stress and my diet they're no longer connected. That's a huge thing for sustainable weight loss over a long time. It's huge. Things come up all the time. But yeah, I'm just saying, losing weight and sustainably losing it and being healthier, you will have more energy to do all those things. Even if you have other health issues, being obese and morbidly obese is going to usually make it worse. Usually you'll have even less energy, even less gas in your tank. She's completely wrong here. But this is an interesting thing to look at when we look at why do these people, like, what kind of mental gymnastics do they think about to stay in this mindset? Finding a middle ground. During the panorama, rather than continuing to think about my body, I decided to explore other interests. I started gardening, dabbling in hydroponics, podcasting, and even woodworking. I think that's great. I've always said, do what you can when you are bigger, because most of the time, if you're driven to food through addiction or ED, a lot of times it comes from not having enough in your life. ED, as far as BED, it is a coping mechanism. Getting new coping mechanisms is huge. New ways of catharsis, whether it's, writing. For me, weirdly enough, it was knitting that finally got me to stop binging. I know that's weird, but I needed something physical that I could feel, because it has to do with sensation, because I have this anxiety. I mean, I still do, but it was especially worse when I was even more hypo than I am. I'm pretty moderately hypo now. But that anxiety, it would drive me to binge. And so when I started knitting, it became easy, because I realized a lot of times I was eating because I wanted that stimulation, and I wanted a physical, tangible feeling that would kind of soothe me or comfort me, or something I could think about or think on. So when I started knitting, it used my hands, and there's the colors of the yarn, and there's that sensation of doing it, and it's a repetitive thing. It really helped. It really helped me. It really did. Like, I'm even getting chills talking about it. It's like, you just got to think about what is driving you to do that, and think of other coping mechanisms. And the other thing is, you need to have hobbies and try to make your life as big as you can, because it motivates you to do even better. It also takes the pressure off of a food addiction, because food isn't the only joy in your life. I love doing YouTube, for example. I love it. I love it. It helps me so much to be doing something that I love to do, and not just having food be the only joy in my life. Hobbies and these things are so important. So important. And a lot of fat people don't have any hobbies. They have nothing. And then they think, how do people do this? Because they have other stuff to do. They have other things in their lives. It's something I think a lot of fat people don't understand. I didn't have the time or energy to explore any of these things when I was dieting or involved with the body positive movement. I also found a Haze-focused doctor who told me she doesn't care what the scale says and doesn't blame every physical issue on my size, but she does want to hear about my own feelings about my weight. I feel like I finally found a doctor who sees me as worthy of good medical care. I think that's great. I still don't know how I feel about dieting or the body positive movement. I feel like there is value in both camps. Yeah, because you can find a space in between. That's what I'm trying to help create. There is a different place to go, or there needs to be. We need to break new ground here. We need to think about this issue differently. I've always said shaming people and all that stuff, it doesn't work on everyone. It only works on a very specific kind of person. And it's like a lot of times with fat people, it's just not always, but a lot of times it's they're not getting out enough. They don't do enough. So if you shame them, then they want to stay inside more. And then that creates more pressure for their addiction. You don't want to do that, but that's part of all these issues. And there are actual systemic issues in regards to obesity. We shouldn't see things as you can't live your life until you've lost weight. It's oftentimes the opposite, that you can't lose weight until you live your life. So a lot of times things are exactly wrong in our society, and that's why this keeps getting worse, both on a physical and mental level. Let's continue. Weight stigma is terrible and should be eradicated. And I think the push to normalize different body shapes and sizes is also important. However, I don't think we should avoid talking about the fact that some of us do have a desire to change our bodies. I think it's normal to want to have other people think you look good. I want to be thin and therefore celebrated by society, rich, and have mad woodworking skills. But the truth is, I will most likely always be a large middle-class woman who will be working toward making peace with decades of fat hate. I may go on another diet. I may be disgusted with my body during vulnerable moments. I may be totally okay with my body in other moments. I'm not going to pretend I don't desire to be a smaller size and blend into society from time to time. I'm not going to beat my body into weight loss submission. Both sides of this issue feel stifling to me. We can't simply sweep the intense weight-focused beliefs our society has held for decades under the rug. Yeah, but we can't go the other way either. The other way is even worse. That's the issue that I have, is it's getting scary out there. By not talking about the desire to change our bodies, it's as if the body positive movement is in a state of denial about how toxic weight-focused beliefs have affected us. Yeah, so I'm much more in the camp of we need to talk about these things to reach solutions, to reach answers and conclusions, and actually start implementing new things and thinking about this in different and new ways that will resolve the issue, not rehashing the same old things that don't work and not doing something like just giving up entirely, which is completely wrong. That's the exact opposite direction of where we should go. I don't think normalizing morbid and super morbid obesity is good for anyone. I think it's horrible. But we need to remember that we don't have to hate somebody because they're fat. You don't. But you also don't have to enable it either, right? And that's the tricky spot. It's new ground. It's a new way of looking at it. And that's hard for people, and I get that. I totally do. But this issue needs a lot of deep thought, and it needs a new path, something new, something different. I hope we can create that together. We need to talk about how this has shaped our beliefs and values. I don't know what the answers are, but I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. And that alone tends to lower my blood pressure. Interesting. I think that this article was really fascinating. I think it really did help me get some more perspective and remember why I do what I do and why I'm talking about this. I think it's so unfortunate that she is in this situation. I think the whole thing is unfortunate, and I can see some of the toxic belief systems that she has. Like, she thinks she has to choose a diet or her whole life, and that's such a horrible thing. But that really keeps a lot of people fat. So I think this is a very valuable thing to go through. Let me know what you guys think. Please please comment below. I really like to see your guys' thoughts on this. I read every comment, always reading every comment. Thank you guys so much. I will talk to you guys again soon. Let's continue to work on this new path.